Welcome to this year's Holocaust Memorial Day ceremony. Each year, many of us gather in this place, in the Peace Garden, for this important occasion. This year we have to meet virtually, of course, but still we come together from different backgrounds, from different religious traditions, united by our desire to honour the past and remember the horrors of the past, and united by our hope for a better future and a better world. We are part of the national picture of Holocaust Memorial, with thousands of activities taking place across the United Kingdom today. Here in Bury St Edmunds, I'm grateful to the contributors to this ceremony, particularly students from Guildhall Feoffment Primary School and King Edward VI Secondary School. Holocaust Memorial Day is the international day on the 27th of January to remember the 6 million Jewish people murdered during the Holocaust. Remembering too the millions of other people killed by Nazi persecution, including Roma people, disabled people, gay and lesbian people, and others. And also remembering the subsequent genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. And we will hear stories of survivors from those genocides in this ceremony. The Holocaust threatened the fabric of civilization, and genocide must still be resisted every day. Our world feels fragile and vulnerable, and we cannot be complacent. Even in the UK, prejudice and the language of hatred must be challenged by all of us. The theme of this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is "Be the Light in the Darkness." It encourages everyone to reflect on the depths humanity can sink to, but also the ways individuals and communities resisted the darkness to be the light before, during and after genocide. We begin by remembering the Holocaust and genocide since, using a series of images from the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. Before that, the famous passage "Night" by Elie Wiesel.
The writer of these words, Elie Wiesel, sees the horrors in Auschwitz. He contemplates suicide by jumping into the electric barbed wire fences surrounding the camp. Just as he's about to bolt to an electric fence, his group is redirected towards a barracks, and he writes these words: "Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp, that turned my life into one long night 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the small faces of the children whose bodies I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky. Never shall I forget those flames that consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments that murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes. Never shall I forget those things, even were I condemned to live as long as God himself. Never."
Avram and Vera were married for over 60 years. They were both survivors of the Holocaust. This photograph was taken in their living room. Avram was a teenager when the war started and was imprisoned in several concentration camps before being liberated. Vera came to England on the Kindertransport programme. All of her family were murdered. Avram and Vera met on a kibbutz in Israel after the war and fell in love. Avram is holding a photograph of his mother's family taken in 1913. All except one uncle were killed during World War II. Sadly, Avram passed away in 2017. Vera is holding 2 photographs. One shows her aged 9 in Holland, where she was met by family friends and put on a boat to England. She does not remember this journey. The other is a photograph sent to England from Prague, of her parents and her grandmother. It says in Czech, "To our darling." It's the last photograph taken of Vera's family before they were killed. Vera. All that I really remember is waving goodbye to my parents at Prague station, and then my next memory is of sitting in Liverpool Street station and hearing announcements in a language I couldn't understand and waiting for somebody to come and pick me up. Avram. It's very important to keep the memory alive for generations to come so that it is not repeated. If they learn something from our stories, then I think that our families didn't die entirely in vain. But also for us, you cannot forget. Forgive, yes, but forget, it's a different story.
Sokful is a survivor of the genocide in Cambodia. This photograph was taken in his garden. Sokful was the eldest child in his family and stayed with his mother and siblings during the genocide. His father was taken away by the Khmer Rouge. They said he would be back in 3 months, and they never saw him again. Sokful took on the role of looking after the family. Most of his family survived the genocide, escaping to refugee camps where they lived for 7 years before finally being able to move to England in 1987. Sokful holds a photograph of his mother taken in a refugee camp on the border of Thailand. I miss my mother a lot. She was my best friend. We went through a lot of terrible times together during the genocide. My mother kept herself strong and alive because she hoped to find her husband again, and also for her children. My duty as the oldest child was to look after my mother. In the camps, we were waiting and hoping that one day we would leave the camp. There is no future there, living with barbed wire around you, and we were hoping to have a good future somewhere else. It's very important to share memories, both good and bad, not to get angry, but to avoid these things happening again. I want to keep the memory of my parents alive.
Eric Murangwa is a survivor of the genocide in Rwanda. This photograph was taken on the roof terrace of his block of flats. Eric was a professional footballer in Rwanda when the genocide began. He was looked after by his teammates and some fans of the team, and he and his family managed to escape to England. Eric is holding a football to symbolise the importance of sport to his life. I had always looked at football as a tool for fun, but after 1994, I came to see sport as a way of bringing people together, educating people, changing people's behaviour and perceptions. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, ever since I started the charity Football for Hope, Peace and Unity. Initially, I had thought about using this project as a way of honouring my younger brother, who was killed during the genocide. He was only 7 years old. I would have wished to have a photograph of him to show today, but all of the photographs we had back then were destroyed. We don't have anything that you can hold and remember. It's always important to remember and to commemorate people who have gone. But it is equally important to think positively and look forward. That's what football does for me.
Safet is a survivor of the Bosnian War. This photograph is taken in his living room. Safet was 16 when Muslim men and boys began being taken away to concentration camps. He remembers his father and brother being ordered out of the house, and his mother stopped him from going with them. He came to England with his mother, and later his father and brother joined them. Safet is holding a school photograph, taken in 1982 when he was 6 years old, before the war started. It was a really mixed group in terms of religion. We were kids and we didn't think of religion at all. I have chosen this photograph because it shows how things were before, and it just reminds me. It would be nice to be able to go back to how it used to be. It can be done, I'm 100% certain. We have no problems between ourselves. It's the politicians making these problems, and that's the most frustrating thing. It's important to keep the memory alive because some people are just not aware of what was happening in Bosnia. It's a surprise to me. People were dying in concentration camps. Torture took place in Europe in the 90s. Everyone thought that once World War II was over, that wouldn't happen again. But it did.
Bouye, name changed to protect his identity, lives in London. He's a survivor of the genocide in Darfur. This photograph is taken on his balcony of his flat. We've created this portrait to share his story without revealing his identity, as it is still dangerous for him to speak out. He has family members still in Darfur. Bouye was part of a rebellion movement against the government killings in Darfur, and he was arrested and tortured for 6 months. Eventually, he was injured so badly that he had to be sent to hospital. Bouye's doctor in the hospital was part of the same tribe as him, the Zagawa tribe, and once Bouye had healed enough, he helped him to escape. Bouye fled the country, travelled up to Libya, and managed to catch a boat to Greece, where he was safe. He now has 2 master's degrees, completed in Greece and the UK. In the foreground is Bouye's bag. It is the only thing he had with him when he escaped from Darfur. I want to say to people, the war in Darfur is still going on, and you can support Darfuris to find peace outside. Today in Britain, the media is free. You can click and find information, but people don't care. They are more interested in sport and football than anything else, so it is hard to get people to be activists.
We meet today at a time when this country is divided, and many of us are experiencing uncertainty, fear and grief. Increasing levels of denial, division and misinformation in today's world mean we must remain vigilant against hatred and identity-based hostility. Yet we know tens of thousands of people are coming together to mark Holocaust Memorial Day, to help those in need and to build a better future. Communities are standing in solidarity and experiencing togetherness, even while we are apart during this pandemic. Our theme this year, Be the Light in the Darkness, is an affirmation and a call to action for everyone marking this day. We can all stand in solidarity. We can all choose to be the light in the darkness. Each year here at the Peace Garden in the Abbey Gardens, councillors read a statement of commitment, and children from Guildhall Feoffment School sing about peace. This year, single voices help us recommit to remember and to act. You may want to join in the words with them now.
Holocaust Memorial Day, statement of commitment. We recognise that the Holocaust shook the foundations of modern civilization. Its unprecedented horror will always hold universal meaning. We believe the Holocaust must have a permanent place in a nation's collective memory. We honour the survivors still with us and reaffirm our shared goals of mutual understanding and justice. We must make sure that future generations understand the causes of the Holocaust and reflect upon its consequences. We vow to remember the victims of Nazi persecution and of all genocide. We value the sacrifice of those who risk their lives to protect or rescue victims. As a touchstone of human capacity for good in the face of evil, We recognise that humanity is still scarred by the belief that race, religion, disability or sexuality makes some people's lives worth less than others. Genocide, anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia and discrimination still continue. We have a shared responsibility to fight these evils. We pledge to strengthen our efforts to promote education and research into the Holocaust and other genocide. We will do our utmost to make sure that the lessons of such events are fully learnt. We will continue to encourage Holocaust remembrance by holding our annual United Kingdom Memorial Day. We condemn the evils of prejudice, discrimination and racism. We value a free, tolerant and democratic society.
In the rising of the sun and its going down, in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, in the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, in the beginning of the year and when it ends, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and are sick of heart, when we have joys we yearn to share. So as long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now part of us.